Welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, where we learn how to integrate faith into the work that we do. Don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. Here's our host, my husband, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, and stewardship coach, Jason Davis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify, and welcome to another episode of the Jericho Force podcast, where we talk about integrating our faith into the work that we do and living out our faith in the marketplace. We've got a really exciting episode. You might say, Jason, you say that all the time, but folks, I'm telling you, it just keeps getting better and better and better. And that's no different with this episode. Before I bring this powerful gentleman of God and doctor on, let me introduce him to you. Dr. Rodney Agan is a culture-shaping, people-encouraging, team-building, thought-provoking, high-energy leader. He's the founder and CEO of Connexus Group, the creator of Personality Imprint Assessments, Launching Forward Leadership Academy, and a number of other leadership tools and resources. He is also the founder and chief encouragement officer of Connexus Global, a nonprofit with the mission of developing leaders and changing lives internationally. Connexusglobal.org. He holds a PhD in communications and a number of professional certifications and recognitions, and has spent over 35 years leading, growing organizations and nonprofits. He specializes in the disciplines of executive coaching, corporate culture shaping, leadership development, and as a dynamic keynote speaker. His most prized accomplishment is being married to his wife Paula since 1985, his 2 married children, and most of all, his 3 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, Dr. Rodney Agan. Dr. Agan, how's it going today?
Jason, it's just my honor to be on here. And when I hear that bio read, I'm thinking my mom must have written it, evidently. So I don't know if I'm as good as all of that, but I'm honored to be here today and to get to know you. Yes.
Absolutely. This is going to be a wonderful conversation. And Dr. Agan, I think it's fair to kick off. I'm sure a man that has had the experience that you've had working with people and in the marketplace, you read a bio like that and you go, man, in 2022, he's here. But what was that professional journey like? So Dr. Agan, how did you even get into, what was the road to getting into what you do now?
Well, obviously, you being faith-based and your listeners maybe coming from a faith-based background would understand. I'm a third-generation pastor. So grandfather over 20 years, a father over 50 years, pastor. I have a brother who's continuing. He's a pastor now, lead pastor for almost 30 years. Wow. And then I served in various roles right out of college and all of those things, and staff roles in churches. Did that for about 15 years, I guess. Lead pastor for 15 years at the same church. And in 2013, just had really gone through a point where I'd completed my PhD, working through, I was coaching people, actually coaching business leaders and ministry type leaders, just because I enjoyed it. It was my ministry. I saw it as a great outreach and a tool, and was doing that for, 4 or 5 years, I guess. And we can talk more about how that change and transformation happened. But in 2013 is when I made the full jump to do what I'm doing now.
Wow. What a road, Dr. Agan. You said a few things. You talked about coaching and being a pastor. And Dr. Agan, some people might go, wait a minute, I think I know what a coach is, and I certainly know what a pastor does. Can you talk about just the role that coaching could play even in ministry?
Well, and so really we've come full circle, and we can talk some about that, but we have in our for-profit company now, we have a corporate division, but we have a ministry division as well. So what we're finding, maybe if I put it in a brief nutshell, I'm seeing this over and over, coming out of COVID and just life and all those things. A lot of our pastors are they're just hurting in the wellness area, mentally, emotionally, physically, and that affects spiritually. You can't disconnect those things. And so from our coaching, there are a lot of coaches out there and a lot of organizations that are great, doing a wonderful job, but their focus is maybe on how to build your church from this to that, or how to whatever. That's not the focus of what we do. We're more into the wholeness and the wellness of the pastor, the staff, the leaders, that kind of thing. And so we coach around that.
That's good. Much needed as well. My goodness. Dr. Agan, you took, at least in my mind, and sure you're going to get into this, it was a step of faith to transition from being a pastor into the marketplace. Can you talk about what that's like, and did you take any criticism? Did anyone question you making that move, or did you even question yourself, like, wow, am I really going to do this?
The answer would be yes to everything you just said, and every one. Had finished 15 and a half years at the same church. We had just relocated to a new 42-acre campus, built our phase 1 facilities, and I don't know, there was something in me. I'm an entrepreneur, visionary. I saw all of that, helped lead through that, and then one day I got up, and it was almost like God just said, "Okay, you were to lead them from there to here, but not from here to there." And my wife would say, my eyes began to light up when I would talk about, hey, I got to work with this pastor or these people, and I saw transformation, and I saw that, whatever. So we prayed about it, went on a sabbatical in 2013. Our son was already out of the house. Our daughter got married in 2013. And so we left and went on a month sabbatical. I told my leadership team I was praying about this move, and would let them know when I got back what I felt like, God was really leading me to do. And so as we were gone, we took a month and went to Florida and we're at a condo. I don't know, this may not sound spiritual, but God speaks in a hot tub. He really does. And I would get up early in the morning, and it was just me by myself sitting out there, and I'm, praying. And I just felt like the Lord gave me the peace and the leadership that had been leading people as He had asked, as He had given me, but now it's time to lead leaders and to make a transformation in what I was going to do. And so I'll tell you this one little piece of it, and then see where you want to go. But so I came back in the condo, and I told my wife that morning, I said, okay, I've got peace. I've got the answer. She said, what is it? What are you going to do? What do you feel like we should do? And I said, I really believe I need to go back, transition out of lead pastor role. I'm going to start a company called Connexus Group, and I'm going to be coaching people, and full time I'm going at it. She said, how many clients do you currently have? And I said, do you mean paying clients? Or do you mean in the ministry world, a lot of people wanted you to coach them but not pay for it. And I'm a little facetious with that. But so she looked at me and she said, okay, you're about to turn 50. If this is a midlife crisis, go get a job or go buy a new Mustang and go back to work next Monday, that thing. But if this is really what you feel to be God's leadership, I'm all in. It's the right time. Let's go for it. And so transitioned out over the next 2 months from what I was doing and jumped in the deep end of the pool and started Connexus Group.
Wow. Dr. Agan, one, I love the transparency. God speaks in the hot tub. And
yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, they need to hear that, Dr. Agan, because sometimes we can get pompous and high and mighty, and when we think about, we have a relational God, and He wants to spend time with us. So when you said that, Dr. Agan, I think about, like, if you were in the hot tub and you're just hanging with one of the guys, and this friend is a best friend, and he just offers the greatest advice and encouragement and leadership, and that's Jesus, and that's the Holy Spirit, and so that's how I think about it. And I think sometimes we forget that. Listen, you could be walking down the street, you could be in church, you could be in the boardroom, or you can be in the bathroom, and He will speak to you. That's kind of a little moniker I developed over time, Dr. Agan. You've heard it in various versions that God is with you from the boardroom to the bathroom.
Right.
And,
I may need to write a book on God speaks in the hot tub or something.
I think it would sell. I know I would definitely buy a copy, Dr. Agan. So, Dr. Agan, I don't know any person walking where there hasn't been those pivotal turning points in their life where God really moved. And I know you have several, but for you, obviously the transition from being a pastor to the marketplace, but maybe what were a couple other turning points in your faith, or if it has to do with your testimony, what were some that stuck out for you?
Well, I think I got the trial by fire when I stepped out. Obviously I think God was testing me, not that he didn't know, but trying to prove to me that he was faithful. And so, you got to pay your bills and you have to do things. And my wife was a realtor. We were leaving the town where I had been for 15 and a half years and pastoring at the same place, lived in a house on the golf course, sold our home. She's been at the same office for 14 years in her real estate. She would say it was hard on her because she says, I felt like she felt like I had clarity of what I was supposed to do. And she said, I felt like I'm just having to just follow along here and I'm not sure where we're going or what's going on. And she even says, I kind of feel like I lost my identity for a while. Her children are out of the house and gone. And we didn't have grandchildren at that time. And all these young kids and college age kids were married that we had pastored and helped. And now she wasn't even their mother anymore, kind of thing. And now we're moving to a new place and we moved close to her parents, and her father died from a long extended illness. And so we moved close to her mom, and lo and behold, she passed away unexpectedly. So, a lot of things happened in a really short amount of time. And I'm trying to get a business off the ground. We're trying to deal with personal things with all of this. Our daughters moved to Colorado, married 2,000 miles away, our son's in Virginia. It was just almost an alone time for a while, just being, quite honest and vulnerable, where we felt like God was almost saying, okay, I'm putting you here so that you're going to have to know that if you get out of this, the only way it was me, it was God, not something that you cooked up or did or whatever. And this would be one of the following things I would follow up with that thought was I had some pastors and pastor friends of mine, mentors of, I had one in particular of a mega church, and he was running a ministry kind of like me. He had his church and great staff, but yet he was leading, developing people. And he came to me and he said, I just think if you had the right church, you had the right staff, you probably have the capacity to do both of those. And maybe that should be it. And so my name was even turned into a phenomenal opportunity to pastor a church, go back and be a lead pastor and continue to have this platform. And it went, I won't never forget, it went through from like a few hundred people resumes, and it kept going down further and further and further. And it got all the way down to me and one other person. And they called me and they said, we really are serious about this, but we've prayed about it as a team, and we just we feel like you could lead us and would be awesome, but we don't feel like you can do both. And we just need you to pray about this. And where are you on that? And I'll never forget, I said, give me till tomorrow. And the next day I called them. We were in a condo actually traveling, and I was trying to work with a client. And my wife was with me. I picked the phone and called the head guy, and I said, you don't know how honored I am that you guys would, put me at this position. The only problem is that's not what God wants me to do. And this is difficult to walk away from a phenomenal package opportunity, but I've got to go this other way. And I hung the phone up, and I've told this story a number of times. God didn't speak to me audibly, but in my heart, my spirit, I felt like God said, okay, are you finished now? You're trying everything else except what I'm trying to tell you to do. So are you finished? If you are, let's go ahead and move forward. If not, I won't let you keep suffering, And that was a turning point for me. And that was probably back in 2014, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. That's so many calls to action that we see in Scripture, Dr. Agan, that are very similar. But, God has a plan, and sometimes we but what about maybe? And he's like, okay, to your point, well, will you let me know when you're ready?
I heard a missionary years ago say, when you go your way, you pay the bills. But if you go God's way, he pays the bills.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I like that. Dr. Agan, so you leave, you transition from being a pastor. We have the opportunity that you turn down. You have the full conviction of what God is calling you into.
Yes.
And then we arrive, and we have Connexus Group. Where did the name come from, and what were the beginning? What was kind of the origins of starting that?
Well, I've always been a networker kind of person. My wife always talks about, she gets on an airplane, she goes for the middle seat with her earbuds and her Kindle, just praying to God nobody talks to her, And she says, I get off of the plane with 5 business cards, and there's a cartoon out there that said, my husband had 5 cards and he's going to be in somebody's wedding, I mean, so I've always been that kind of, I just do. That's just my, the gift I guess God's given me, and that can be good and it can be bad, I'm sure. So a few people would say things kind of like, you're really good at connecting us to people. Or you're really good at connecting the dots between things. You seem to can see through the smoke, and I would have people say something like that. You just seem to connect through people or through things quicker than what I do. And I guess from that point, that's kind of where I just saw the word connects and connects us. So I just changed the X instead of a CT and CONNEXUS. And then I got really ambitious. It was just me. Okay. But I called it a group. So we're a Connexus Group. I was by faith, we're going to be a group one day.
Yeah.
And today we are. But at that time, it was me, myself, and I. That was the group.
Got it. Well,
maybe me and the Lord. How about that?
Right. You and the Lord, and then maybe, Dr. Agan, maybe a little prophecy there. Like, hey, we're going to be a group one day.
Yeah.
And here you are. Well, Dr. Agan, we're going to get into both of these. So you've got the Connexus Group, and then you've got Connexus Global. We're going to discuss both. Mm-hmm. With the Connexus Group, you have a variety of services. So who's kind of your target, and how are you able to serve the marketplace?
Yeah, God has really opened up a lot of phenomenal doors for companies with over 100,000 employees. We've worked with their top VPs and our assessments, assessing all of their teams, a lot of their teams, maybe is a better way to put it, and all the way down to entrepreneurs, people starting up a side business and trying to go full time with it, and how do we scale and those kind of things. So we've coached a lot. And then, I always say counseling deals with your past, coaching with your future, and consulting. To be a coach, I don't have to be the expert in the room. If I'm coaching you are the expert. I've just got to be the expert of the process to know how to help you to get where you're going. Consulting, I'm the expert in the room. I've got to be more on top of it. Good thing about it is consulting, it's, you can charge a lot more for it. So consulting is not a bad gig. So we have the corporate side. We're actually, vetted through about 4 or 5 years ago with Chick-fil-A Corporate, the support center. And so we coach a lot of Chick-fil-A operators around the nation, and that's been a really, for us, been doing coaching operators for 9 years now. So got a lot of experience in the lingo and the understanding of the Chick-fil-A world. And then from there, it's just moved into a ton of different types of companies, car companies, airplane companies, manufacturing, just you name it.
Wow.
So
that's huge. That's a great impact there, Dr. Agan. As you know, when I first met you at a presentation you did back with GCBN, the Georgia Christian Business Network, I think at the time you were talking about a particular assessment and certifications. Yeah. And a friend of mine, well-researched, likes to say it this way: we assess for success.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, Dr. Agan, there's so many assessments out there, and I look at humans kind of like the onion. Maybe the disc reveals one aspect, the Enneagram reveals another, or HBDI, or Myers-Briggs, or Strength Finders. So, Dr. Agan, with some of the assessments that you use, what is the uniqueness of it, and what are you more so trying to draw out in the person or the leader?
Well, back when I was still pastoring, I had begun this journey with the assessment of, obviously most every church and believer has done a spiritual gifts analysis at some point. And so obviously we were using that, and this is back in the early 2000s. We didn't have dashboards and all these fancy things that I have today, and everything's digital now. But so we would take just the spiritual gifts, and then someone had introduced me to the disc, and I began to understand the disc, and so I began to marry the two together. Okay, I want everybody to take the spiritual gift and then the disc. So that is how it birthed in the beginning. And I began to think more about it, and obviously with my PhD, and then surrounding myself with a lot of people that are a lot smarter than I am in this world of understanding. We eventually came to a conclusion of they helped me put together what I was trying to say, and that is marrying the spiritual gift, the disc, and the learning styles together. And we look at it as this is how you serve, this is how you think, and this is how you learn. Wow. But when you blend the three together, it gives you that full access. So your personality is kind of like your first name, and your spiritual gift is kind of like your last name, your family name. So I look at it as, as an administration, spiritual gift, that's my last name. My physical last name is Agan, so it's Rodney Agan. I have a bloodline of my family, the Agan family. I don't care if I change my name, dye my hair, move to a different country, whatever I choose to do, I still have that DNA. So as an administrator spiritual gift, I don't care where I work. If it's in the ministry, if it's in a Chick-fil-A, if it's in a bank, if it's in a warehouse, I'm going to approach things from an administrative mindset. This is how I operate and work. So we really focus in on that spiritual gift, but then the disc, we use a 16 pattern. So depending on what kind of disc you have, that is the way you think about how you serve. So a D administrator is going to be much different than an S administrator.
That's good.
And then you add learning styles to it. And so to kind of finish the thought here, after doing that for a while, when I got into Connexus Group, I realized there was a big gap and a great opportunity to use this assessment. And so Chick-fil-A is actually the first people that ever used it 9 years ago. It was on paper. I mean, it was terrible back then. And so then it began to grow, and we used our corporate opportunities to really build out dashboards and get more things vetted and tested and checked and on all of that. So what we did was we changed the names to protect the innocent, if you will. We took the 9 basic spiritual gifts and we turned them into 9 career competencies.
Okay.
So our corporate version has nothing at all to say about spiritual gifts. It doesn't even talk about Bible scriptures or nothing. Our church version does, but not our corporate one. And so it allowed us to really dig into the competencies or how you work. Personality is how you think. Learning styles is how you learn.
That's good, Dr. Agan. Folks, if you're listening, you want to talk about understanding yourself, like what I hear, Dr. Agan, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, how you think. And we see that in Scripture, Dr. Agan. I've heard somebody put it this way, when that Scripture says, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how can you love your neighbor when you don't even know how to love yourself, which stems from, we're able to love because Christ loved us first. So a mentor of mine said, Jason, you've heard hurt people, but those who have been loved well, love others well.
Oh, great.
And so as you're talking about the assessment, I'm getting excited because I feel like so many people need to dive into that because they might be going down a path in business and not really have an understanding of what they might be doing or where to go next, because they don't know kind of what makes them tick. And how they're thinking. So that's powerful, Dr. Agan.
A lot of people will contact us, church or corporate, and say, hey, we heard you have one of those disc. They look at it as, oh, it's that disc thing. Will you come do a disc on our team? And it's no offense to people that just do that, but that's not what we do. What we say to them is the disc, the personality, that's how you think. But that's the second thing you need to know about your team and yourself. The first one is, how do you work and serve? Because you don't change that. In our opinion, the spiritual gift, the competencies, that's how God wired you, and that won't change. But the disc can kind of sway depending on your seasons of life, trauma, a lot of things. You won't turn a D will not become an S. You don't flip to the other side, but you may sway some. Your thinking varies or matures, but not your spiritual gift and competency. So we really hone in on that. And our dashboard allows you to set your teams up so you can look at what all your team looks like. And it really, I'll say this other piece about this as well. If one of the things that we really hone in on is it's kind of like walking in the spirit versus walking in the flesh. So how God wired you is this way. And it's like he wired you to live that way and to work that way and do. So you have certain needs, and if those needs are met, you're going to continue to do that. But if those needs are not met, you begin to walk in the flesh. And so we really want to approach it from from that perspective, I guess, with the assessment. How do we help you get those kind of needs met so that you can always live fully the way God intended for you to lead and to live?
So powerful, Dr. Agan. I'm getting excited, man. I'm getting excited. I can only imagine the breakthrough that clients and customers, whether faith-based or church-based or corporate, are experiencing. Was there any one in particular? I understand privacy and whatnot, so even if you say, I remember one time Billy, but is there one breakthrough that really sticks out to you where you're like, wow, Lord, this is why I do this?
Well, I'll be in a coaching session. This has happened to me where we coach a lot of C-suite type, individuals that are generally not necessarily believers. We don't approach it. We don't go in as Connexus Group with, the heavy end of, hey, we're going in here with a Bible and preaching. We go in as full-blown, coaches, consultants to do that. But what happens is occasionally I'll have a CEO, CFO, CEO, whatever. Somewhere in that process of coaching, he'll flip the table or she'll flip the table and say something kind of like, well, I hear more about you. And then I'll hear them say, my wife is threatening to leave. My son is in rehab. My daughter's, whatever. Our family's upside down. I got all the money in the world, but I'm miserable. And then they say something like, what do you do? And when I'm able to say, well, I'm faith-based and I come at things from a biblical worldview, and I'm able to see things through the lens of how God made me. And so my happiness and joy is not in things, but in Jesus and in my following of Scripture. To me, when I get to do that, that's the breakthrough moments of like, that's why you do what you do. So cool. I enjoy those.
That's pretty cool right there. Dr. Agan, I think that sets up perfect segue, because you have the Connexus Group, but then you've also got Connexus Global, your nonprofit. So talk to us about how that got started, what you do, and some upcoming things you have going on.
Yeah, Connexus Global was part of the original vision that I really believed God gave me back 9 or 10 years ago, but I just wasn't able to start it. It wasn't the timing. So about a year and a half ago, we founded Connexus Global. I have a board and full blown. We're going after it. This is going to be the fourth quarter of my life. It's Connexus Global. I'll just tell you that. And so our tagline is we're developing leaders and changing lives internationally. So there's a few things that we're doing that I'm really passionate about, and I'm going to be heading back to Honduras in about 10 days, 12 days from now. It'll be the third time I've been there in the last 12 months working on some of this. We're using it kind of like our laboratory right now of testing. West Africa, Cambodia is another area that we're probably going to move into as well. So doing some things in the areas of using the platform of Connexus Group, our for-profit, all of the tools and processes and things, it brings legitimacy into a third world country. When I walk in to a third world country and they can look at our website, I can show them people that we work with, what I do, understand. It brings legitimacy where they say, would you, speak to us, and we need help. So we go into a country, and for instance, in January of 2023, and maybe this resonates with some of your listeners, I'd love for it to. We take, it's an invitation only kind of thing, but it's a group, and it's business people, really believers that are business people that want to go with us, and we're doing a full-fledged leadership conference there. That at the Intercontinental Hotel, we'll have speakers, breakouts, roundtable discussions. And the reason we're going to do it, the reason is not just to go teach leadership, but we're working in partnership with a mission there, Good Samaritan Mission, that's been there over 50 years. And so I'm training currently, I just finished last week, an 8-week training of all Spanish people in Honduras that are all believers, business degree, lawyer people. These are sharp people in Honduras that have a passion for the gospel. So they will be with us at our conference as table leaders, as interpreters. And the idea is at the end of that conference, we introduce everyone there to join together, maybe in cohorts of 12, and meet every month for the next year. Wow. And these people we've trained there that are believers will be leading those cohorts under our tutelage, and we'll be giving them, here's more information, here's good tools, teach them this, show them that. But the idea is they begin a process of discipleship and hopefully, gospel confrontation at some point. So that's one thing. And if it's okay, I'll mention the other briefly real quick.
Absolutely.
This is a definite passion of mine. While we're there, when I'm down here in a few weeks, we're going to be training 100 soldiers. The colonel has given me access to train on his base, which is going to be neat. We're going to be training a bunch of business leaders, 60 pastors. But our main deal that I'm really excited about is some of these pastors are pastoring 1, 2, 3 churches, and they're making $200 a month. I mean, $400 a month is minimum wage, and they're living on $200 a month and just picking up sticks or finding things to make ends meet. So what we've done is I wrote a thing called the one-page plan for a minimalist, one-page business plan for a minimalist. And so we've been training pastors, and I've already trained 12 in the last year. We train them on how to develop a full business plan of something that they could do. I have welders, I have restaurant owners, I have little pulperia store operators, I have a printer. And so they have some kind of training in this area. So they put together a full business plan of what all they would need to get that business off the ground. And generally, it's about a $2,500 one-time investment. And so we give the funds to the mission, Good Samaritan Mission. We find people, donors here, that would invest $2,500. And we give the money then through the mission, who we work with. The mission has an operating agreement with that pastor. And so that pastor gets funded, gets his business up off the ground, and he has 6 months to get it moving. And after 6 months, he has to pay back 50% of what he's been given in payments. And he's paying it to the mission, not us. And it's starting a fund to develop the next pastor to have a business. So at some point, there'll be a tipping point where they won't need our funds anymore. Mm-hmm. The mission can. And so he meets monthly with the mission, shows them his books, He's accountable to them. And so that's where we are right now. So I don't mind. I'm not asking for a dime from me, but I don't mind asking for donors to say, hey, I need you to help me fund a $2,500 pastor who will be able to fish for the rest of his life and win people with the gospel. And so that's what we do.
That's a powerful cause right there,
Yeah.
Dr. Agan. There's a spiritual component, and then there's the economic component as well. So, folks, if you're listening, we'll have Dr. Agan's information, both of his business and the nonprofit, in our show notes. But Dr. Agan is somebody you definitely want to connect with and follow. Dr. Agan, this has been such a powerful conversation. You've got the trip coming up to Honduras. We're in the back half of 2022. What else are you excited about? Any other events or things you're developing through the end of the year?
Yeah, we're getting ready to launch an 8-week online course that'll be, from now on, it'll be running, and I have a couple of live coaches helping me do it, and it's called Leadership Relaunch. So it's more of an executive level. And so it's going to really dive deep into the key metrics and things that you need to know about yourself and leadership. And we've even developed a brand new assessment that's going to go with that, that helps you assess your company and business in a way that helps you to know, on a success business grid, where am I and where do I want to go? And so some of that will be self-driven. And then you'll have a live coach that you can jump on a call with once a week as well. So you can work through that. So very, very excited. That's kind of my next product type launch of leadership development. So that's coming up. You'll see more about that at theconnexusgroup.com.
Love it. Dr. Agan, I'm very excited for what God is doing in your life, and these assessments and tools, both domestically and internationally, are just going to be huge for so many. Dr. Agan, you've kind of like the fishing, right? You've laid out all the hooks, and by now some of the listeners are like, golly, where can I find out more about Dr. Agan? So, Dr. Agan, the contact information you're comfortable giving out, what's the best way for people to connect with what you're doing?
Yeah, there's a contact page on our website that would be the easiest, and it gives you some options to see what you're interested in. But it's just TheConnexus group.com, theconnexusgroup.com. Go to the contact page and feel free to let us know. And my assistant keeps up with that and tells me what's going on. So we'd be honored to help in any way. I'll give you things if I can. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a link when you can put it in the show notes. If you're a business owner, even if you're, own your own business of one, but you're a business owner, I'm going to give maybe the first 10, I'll just give you a free assessment. They're normally like $79, but I'll give the first 10 that tell you whatever a free assessment, because even though you're Georgia Tech, I'll still give it to you. How about that?
I appreciate that, Dr. Agan. Folks, we were talking offline, Dr. Agan, that other team up there in Athens, that red team. Now, I understand the blood of Jesus is red, but remember the road, the streets in heaven are paved with gold.
Yes. So. Athens is in the Bible, by the way. I don't know that Atlanta is, but
that's true. But gold is in the Bible.
That's right. I have a coach, I'll tell you this as we leave, that used to work with me, a COO of my company, and he's doing some great things right now. Great guy. And he had 6 boys, and 3 of them graduated Tech and 3 graduated Georgia.
Oh, wow. So
he said the running joke is the Georgia guys, or the Tech guy says to Georgia, I'm sorry, I'm saying this backwards. The Georgia guy says to Tech guys, I'm sorry about your football team. And the Tech guy says to Georgia, I'm sorry about your diploma. So that's the joke.
Right.
I'll take it.
I love it. I've heard different versions of that too. But folks, all in jest. Listen, God is with you in Athens, just like God is with you.
He is. That's right. Yes.
Well, Dr. Agan, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Folks, you're listening. It's an honor for Dr. Agan to have that special offer for the assessment. So at jerichoforce.com and the blog section where we keep all our show notes, we'll have all the links and information that Dr. Agan is talking about. And Dr. Agan, really appreciate you giving that offer.
Thank you. And Jason, it's just really an honor to be on here. And thank you for what you're doing, helping in the stewardship world. And it's a huge deal that we should steward our finances, but our lives. And so keep up the good work. And thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's all we have time for today. You know how we end things. Don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. We'll see you next time on the Jericho Force Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Jericho Force Podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out jerichoforce.com/podcast for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortify, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business, available on Amazon.
You're listening to Julius Live Worldwide Podcast.